As scandal rocks, one of Japan's core manufacturing companies will be asking whether Japan's reputation for manufacturing integrity has been irreparably damaged. And after the chief executive of Hong Kong delivered a major policy address on Wednesday, are we about to see a major new charm offensive for Hong Kong's beleaguered middle classes? Welcome to The Point. I'm Li Chuan, sitting in for Liu Xin. Kobe Steel, one of Japan's largest steel companies with customers across the globe, has admitted to falsifying data on some of its products used in a variety of sectors. Kobe Steel revealed on Sunday that some aluminum and copper products shipped from September 2016 to August 2017 were falsely labeled as meeting the specifications requested by customers. Most of its customers are now racing to check the safety of their products. Will the scandal lead to the bankruptcy of Kobe? With other scandals surrounding some major Japanese companies, is it too early to say that Japanese manufacturing is now on a downward spiral? Joining me on the phone from Tokyo is Mr. Naoyuki Yoshino, Dean of the Asian Development Bank Institute. And here with me in the studio is also Mr. Liu Baocheng. He's the director of the Center for International Business Ethics at the University of International Business and Economics. Professor Liu, let me ask you about this. Some point out that cutting costs is the main contributing factor to this corporate failure. What do you think? What seem to be the reasons?
Well, they are really on the losing side of competition, given the global movement towards the cost reduction, and also with the many of the rising competitors there. And also, if you look at the whole Japanese industry, they are stuck in the middle, and they are not really following the global innovation, and they still operate the status quo, even if they are proud of their total quality management, but it's not there. But just-in-time management is also another very important factor, and so they have to deliver to the large orders that is really beyond their normal capacity. And the other is that Kobe has been losing money for the last few years, and they wanted to have a quick turnaround over their return on investment. Mm-hmm. So they are now being pressurized to really to operate below the bottom line, which is the basic ethical integrity, and that can really turn out to be a major disaster along the entire value chain, and also that's disruptive to the ecology of business world.
All right, I'm being told my guest from Tokyo, Professor Yoshino, is with us now. Professor, so let me get back to the question. What do you think are the contributing factor to the falsifying data scandal? Who should be held responsible for this?
I think Japanese company used to have a huge profits, so there was no need for falsify those data. However, Kobe still are facing with two issues. One is export prices are declining due to high appreciation of Japanese yen. Secondly, many Japanese companies has to pay their pension benefits for retirees, and aging population also pressures lots of Japanese companies. They have to prepare the payment for their retirees. Mm-hmm. And Kobe Steel has been violated about several percent of the strength of aluminum and steel compared to Japanese standard, industrial standard. So I think that the level of their falsification was not so high. So far, Toyota and GM and about 200 companies are checking the quality of the products. So when they have to replace, then that would have been a big damage for Kobe Steel. Mm-hmm. But so far, the strength is only several percent declined and not so much damage, I think.
Now, Kobe Steel revealed on Sunday that the falsifications may have started a decade ago. That's for a much long time. Why has it taken such a long time to uncover the scandal? How much does Japanese corporate culture have a role in this, as far as integrity is concerned?
Okay. As far as the press conference is concerned, they have been falsifying since 2016 until 2017. And Japan industrial standard is always checking once every year. So I don't think their falsification was so long. And if that the press conference is true, the falsification was caused by 4 factories of Kobe Steel, and between 2016 and 2017. However, it is very important for the trust of Japanese companies. So I think the Kobe Steel and other industries of Japan has to think about the ethics of Japanese industry and also that to keep the trust of the Japanese company. Recovery will be very urgent for all over Japan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yoshino, joining us on the phone from Tokyo. Now, Professor Liu, you hear what our guest from Tokyo said. Now, Kobe Steel president warned on Thursday that there might be more falsification of data, and this could spread to other sectors. Do you think the company can survive the falsification scandal? Will it end up in bankruptcy?
So far, fortunately, there's not major disasters that are being reported. And so right now, given the size and also given the 100 years of brand, so they are still having a chance to survive, but they need to talk very carefully with those clients, and because all those clients are big ones, from Boeing to Nissan to Tokyo, all these big companies, they can really, bargain very hard with them to compensate the loss, and probably there's going to be some product recall. And also they have to provide all the cost for further inspection and reevaluation of the quality. And so the other issue, there could be a big insurance claim that because those buyers are facing many more end buyers, and there could be further possible liability occurred on those clients along the value chain. So therefore, they have to be prepared on that. So whether the government or the industrial circle is going to really build them out, by which time, so that's a big question mark. Yeah. And I think there are a number of corrective measures they can really take to work with the partners, for example, for information sharing, for joint committee of review, and also to build the whistleblowing mechanism to make this company really survive.
So you're still hopeful that the company can survive this, but let's take a look at the impact of this sector and possibly over other sector. Kobe has customers in global automotive industry. You mentioned some of the big names: Toyota, Nissan, Honda, Suzuki, Ford, Mazda, Subaru, Mitsubishi. They're all among Kobe customers. Are those Kobe products part of the core components that may lead to global recall, do you think?
From the products they make, they really form the very strategic components in those, from airplane to railroad trains to cars and to even to rockets, etc. So there can be a fatal blow if anything happens. So right now, small cracks have already been discovered because of the poor quality. So the marginal part is that they are operating still above the industrial standard, but they are not really living up to the specifications that are provided by those customers. So whether customers are really too demanding, of course they have the right to demand, and also once the contract has been reached, they have to deliver. And so I think now whether a replacement is there to be provided and extra insurance to be supplied. So I think that's the point they can really negotiate. But of course, if any reoccurrence of such can ruin the business entirely. It's not only the company per se, but all the Japanese as a brand, and also the downstream companies, over now 200, probably more. After the new discoveries.
You pointed out a very important fact. This could not only affect automotive sector, but also railway, aviation sector, and the whole Japanese brand. I mean, this scandal really hit the tender spot of Japan. The country relies on quality manufacturing, as a selling point over China and other countries that, offer this cheaper alternative. How much of a blow is this to Japan's reputation as a whole?
Well, when you think of made in Japan, you think that they are savvy, they are made by professionals, they have the total quality management that are in place. But right now, given the successive rounds of scandal, it's not only with Kobe Steel, it could with Mitsubishi and many other companies, either in the quality or in the reporting, and now the falsification of batch records. So that's really a indication of the loss of the professional dedication and also ethical integrity to all the business partners along their value chain. And now the Made in Japan as the country of origin name is now being highly tarnished. So consumers and industrial buyers are really beginning to lose their confidence in what is quote unquote made in Japan. So this is also reflective of a deeper problem of aging population on the assembly line and lack of governance and lack of the quality control. So therefore, the company's stock has fallen dramatically, but that's only a tip of the iceberg. So, when the entire Japanese industry are being tarnished in losing the confidence of major customers. Mm-hmm. So that's quite a blow. I think that's also a warning mm-hmm. to the Japanese government and also the industry circle mm-hmm. to really to have quick measures to revive this industry and to remove the bad records that are being there to continuously hurt the Japanese industry.
Let me pull back from our current discussion because we have breaking news to tell about, and I want you to hear about this too, and I want to get your feedback on this. So we've been told the U.S. has said it will withdraw from UNESCO on December 31st, 2017. The State Department said the U.S. would seek to remain engaged with the organization as a non-member in an observer status. The U.S. stopped paying its dues to UNESCO in 2011 after it voted to include the Palestinian Authority as a member. And that is the breaking news happening at this moment. So Professor Liu, what do you think of this, U.S. pulling back from the UNESCO organization?
Well, now nothing
is this unexpected to you?
Well, actually now nothing is surprising with Donald Trump sitting in that place, and it's also really a consistent message of isolation, and he's trying to shovel off all the international commitments. So U.S. is no longer a Robin Hood in the world, and no longer a protector of what they wave at the banner of international justice and fairness, etc. So American first and immediate interest American first. So they are looking for early harvest with many of the trading partners. They want to dismantle the NAFTA and dismantle TPP, etc. And they pull out from the climate change accord in Paris. So they do not want to honor the international obligations. So I think this is really a really transactional approach, and they are really losing the vision that where's America as they want to be great again, and this is not the right approach.
All right, many thanks for your insights, Professor Liu. And you're watching The Point on CGTN. We're going to take a short break. We have much more to come after the break. Stay right here.
This is CGTN.
You're watching CGTN. I'm Jeff Moody, live in Beijing.
You're watching CGTN.
Coming to you from Washington, D.C.
You're watching CGTN.
Coming to you from my room.
and members of the
Mark, what can you tell us about events happening there?
politics.
This is a pretty picture. I think of the van.
Back over to Beijing.
To go after them.
All about the man.
This is CGTN. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back to The Point. The chief executive of China's Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, Carrie Lam, delivered her policy address on Wednesday. Unlike her predecessors, Lam only spent 40 minutes to outline her vision for the government's 5-year tenure. The 49,000-word speech covered a range of issues. Among others, Lam reiterated the importance of one country, two systems principle. Meanwhile, she also vowed to put the public's housing needs as a top priority. Additionally, she offered a fillip to young people, planning to appoint more of them to the government. Judging by the content of her speech, it seems that Lam will strive to set a new starting point for Hong Kong and reestablish harmony in the community. Yet taking office at a time when many of Hong Kong's grassroots community can't afford a home and angry young people are having identity problems, will Lam be able to bring new hope to the special administrative region? Well, joining me from Hong Kong is Paul Luck, an assistant professor in the Department of Economics at Hong Kong Baptist University, and also Mr. Kem Man Fon, a council member for Tuen Mon District. Thank you both for joining us. So let me start with Mr. Kem first. During her speech, Carrie Lam stressed that everyone in the special administrative region has a responsibility to ensure the implementation of the one country, two systems principle. Let's now take a listen first and get your response.
Yeah, I think to hold the one country, two system in Hong Kong is her first mission. But I think the policy address really mentioned that by the judicial part, the Secretary of Justice really make a stick to those people who support the independence of Hong Kong, because you see the Secretary of Justice has prosecuted some of the legislative councillors who support the independence of Hong Kong, and the court, working independently according to the local law, has disqualified them. So this is a really big stick and a big punch to the people who disagree with the one country, two system. And I think this policy address has mentioned this and emphasized this point.
And Professor Luck, would you agree with what's being said there? I mean, the fact that Hong Kong is an inalienable part of China is beyond dispute, but contrary to what Lam has said, the idea of an independent Hong Kong is being discussed by young people there. So what can Lam do with those pro-independence groups before they cross the red line?
Right. I think in the policy address, Carrie Lam mentioned a few things. For example, she has proposed to reintroduce Chinese history as a part of secondary school curriculum. It will be a compulsory curriculum. That is one thing. And also, she has also proposed to increase the teenage or young people's representation in a number of consultation committees and ask them to give ideas as to what they think the policy should be. And so she aims at more inclusion of the young people in the policy discussions.
Now, Lam's speech came after local and mainland Chinese students engaged in a war of words over postings on a democracy wall. Admittedly, Hong Kong youngsters appear to be the most disaffected sector during the previous administration, and it seems that they don't have much sense of belonging towards mainland China today. So, Mr. Kem, how can the SAR government sell the idea of one country, two systems to them, as these are the future of Hong Kong? What's the root and answer to their identity problem?
First of all, of course, is by the education, as mentioned in the policy address. The Education Bureau will increase the Chinese history in the curriculum. And the second is that we have to think about how the Chinese central government can help Hong Kong to grow. It's the main point, because we always talk about that Hong Kong young people can the Chinese central government can support the Hong Kong young people, but we cannot see the real policy from there. And most of the Hong Kong young people think that after the handover, the economic and their livelihood is getting worse. That's the main point, because they cannot see the support from the central government. Most the policy from the central government, they help the businessmen, they help the rich people from Hong Kong, but not the young people. That's the very critical point.
They want to see real actions, and in a bid to involve the youth community building, Lam also plans to appoint more young people to the government, aiming to increase their ratio in the current term government to 15%. So, Professor Luck, the government will also recruit 20 to 30 young people aspiring for a career in policy research. Do you think that's considered real action for the youngsters, and how will young people respond to her gesture?
Well, I think yes, this is one thing, and also, back in 2013, with the Occupy Central movement was actually triggered by a constitutional development agenda, and by the former Chief Executive C.Y. Leung. But here, this time for the Carrie Lam's policy address, I feel that she is putting more focus actually on economic and social issues. And for example, the number of words she spends on discussing political issues and say constitutional development is only a small fraction, and she also mentions that she wants to have a more harmonious society first, and that will create the atmosphere for people for us to discuss more sensitive issue like political development.
And Mr. Kam, what do you think? All these gestures appealing to the youngsters, will them work?
I think for me, the first question about absorbing those young people in the committee is that who will be absorbed? Because this is the old method, actually, we call it administrative absorption of politics. In the past, before the handover, the British government will absorb those social elites or economic elites or those business elites into those committees for bearing the responsibility of making policy. But right now, Carrie Lam would like to absorb or invite those young people inside the committees. But who are they? Because when we talk about young people, they are very different and very diversified. Some of the young people, they also support the pro-establishment camp. Some may support the pan-democratic camp, or some even support the independence of Hong Kong. So it's the main point that who will be absorbed? This is the first question. If the government will only absorb those young people who support the pro-establishment camp, I don't think this method will be work.
Yeah, let's also talk about economy. I mean, in her address, Lam also laid out Hong Kong's future economic plan, saying that the growth in 2017 should exceed the government's previous forecast of 3.5%. Is this a conservative or bold figure, Professor Luck?
Well, I think it is a reasonable figure, given that the first half of the year, the economic performance in Hong Kong is pretty good, and of course we have more risks coming, risks about geopolitical risks, other economic risks coming from different areas of the world. But I think still this target is a reasonable target.
A reasonable target, Mr. Kam. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think the target is reasonable, but this kind of policy actually we need more time to see and to be tested.
Well, she also said that both innovation and technology and the creative industries have a competitive edge and much potential when it comes to developing Hong Kong's economy. Why is this so important to diversify Hong Kong's economy?
Actually, Hong Kong has moved a bit later than other Hong Kong's competitors like Singapore. For example, in terms of new technologies like sharing economy, big data, this kind of technology, or even e-wallet or online payment system, Hong Kong is acting a bit slow. But I see that Carrie Lam has an ambition to develop this research and development and innovative technology to to make up on this part. And for example, previously. For example, last year we have a case in which some Uber drivers, they were arrested because they do not have proper insurance, or so there is some policy uncertainties there, as to what is legal, what new technology may not be legal. It is not very clear it is not very clearly specified in the legal framework. So people are a bit hesitant as to whether to try out the new technology. So I think this policy address sets a right direction for Hong Kong to develop research and development and creative industries.
Now, I wanted to also take some time to touch upon this housing and livelihood there. I mean, private property prices have been soaring to high levels, and consequently, not only the grassroots and low-income families, but also the middle class are experiencing deep difficulties. And in her speech, Lam said the government will strive to shorten the waiting time for public rental housing, and also propose a starter homes project for middle-class families to reignite their hopes to own a home. What are the chances that Lam will succeed?
Well, yes. For example, for the starter home scheme, actually, she is targeting households at the top 20 percentile income. So these are not poor people. These are relatively advantaged and rich people in Hong Kong. And they still need and the government thinks that these people still need a bit of help from the government. So that explains how serious is the problem of high house price in Hong Kong. But ultimately, I think whether this housing policy will be successful depend on how much land can the government search and can find, because right now in Hong Kong the land supply is very limited, and well, there are. It's not that Hong Kong has no land, but a lot of land
Professor Lau, but we're running out of time.
Usage.
Thank you very much for joining us tonight. And that does it for tonight's The Point. I'm Li Xuan sitting in for Liu Xing. Thank you so much for watching, and bye for now.